Okay, good morning. I'm Bill Cook from the University of Arizona Cooperative Extension in Greenlee County, and today we're pruning fruit trees. This tree is an apple. So before you start pruning, it's always good to know where the fruit hangs on an apple. This being last year's growth, this is the scion. These are all leaf buds. If you look closely here, you can see a little growth ring from the year before. Now we're getting into the 2-year-old wood and we're starting to get some fruit buds. We get back in here to 3-year-old wood and that's where the fruit buds are. And of course eventually the fruit buds will become a spur. And this is a spur right here. And the spur will last many, many years. You'll have fruit off of that every year for years to come. That's one of the reasons it's so important to think about where the fruit is when you're pruning. Another aspect is that you want your fruit on the horizontal growth. The reason being that the fruit can hang unobstructed and the skin of the fruit is not damaged, allowing entry to insects, disease, that sort of thing. It's a fruit quality move is what it is, because you can see here where we've developed spurs, we've got a real nice place for apples to hang. And on through the tree, there's spurs here, there's spurs here, here. So that's what you're thinking about when you're pruning your tree, where that fruit's going to hang. So to start with, you start with diseased or damaged or dead limbs, which there isn't any on this tree because it's been pruned from day one. You start looking for crossed limbs because those can happen over the course of a summer. You start looking at previous year's pruning decisions to avoid crowding, narrow crotches, poor balance, that sort of thing. So right here is a really good example. As this tree has grown, because it grew this much last year, things that looked okay a few years ago, now not so good. So what I'm looking at is I've got limbs here, got limb here, here, and here. So I'm looking at that thinking, how do I go about thinning that to make more room? So obviously something's going to have to come out. Now, part of that decision process is look at this limb and look at this limb. Look at their position on the tree as compared to the other limbs. So the decision here is to remove this one. So that's what we're going to do here. And you always cut just to the outside of the growth rings. So there's one out. Now we're getting something pretty nice here. So what else? This one's kind of horizontal. It's kind of crowding these others. This is a pretty nice, well-balanced limb. So next, we're going to take this out. Having done that, we now just have a little bit of thinning to go and maybe control the direction of things. So anytime you're making a cut, whether you're cutting to a little twig or a bud, remember that you are influencing the direction that this tree is going to grow, and you're making your limb a little shorter and a little sturdier. So we're going to start in this general part of the tree. Now, this looks pretty good for now. We would like this to grow towards the outside, so I'm going to cut that back to a bud that goes outside. This one, we want to cut it to a bud going that way. This looks pretty good. This is getting long. It does need some branching, which is the other thing that's going to happen. So I'm going to tip this a little bit, and I'm going to push some side branches on that. This might be a crowd next year. We don't know. We'll wait and see what next year brings. So I'm going to come in here and tip this to create some side branching. So here's a limb that looks pretty good. This one is going pretty much straight up. There's really no place in your tree for that, because years from now, if this develops fruit, they're going to hang on the side of it, and they're going to rub. They're going to be hanging sideways against this, and when the wind blows, it's going to rub. Fruit that's hanging against something will be deformed. It's just not a good situation. So we're going to take that out. This limb's getting a little long and limber. We need a few more branches in it. We're going to cut it. This one's straight up. This one's sideways. Now we're getting down in here where some of these, we don't want some of these to develop a branch. So what do we do there? Well, this is something I like to do. Come in here, a couple, 2, 3, maybe 4 buds, and cut it. So it's going to start growing right there. Now I'm not developing a branch here. What I'm aiming at is getting some fruit buds on this. So say after I cut it, it grows out to here. Well, I cut it again, and I cut it again. And I keep this nice and short. So these buds are 1 year old today. I do this again next year, they'll be 2 years old. I do it again the following year, they'll be 3 years old. Now they'll be fruit buds. And I'll have a little short stubby branch right here that will develop into a spur. So that's something you can do with these little side shoots in here. If they're in a place where it's good for fruit but not good for a branch, you can do that very thing. So this particular pruning method, this being an apple, this also applies to pears. Pears and apples have the same kind of growth habit. So this is what you do with a pear or an apple. So we get some of this vertical stuff out of here. We'll cut this one back, dangle a little bit of fruit. We've got a nice opening here, but that will obviously be crowded. We'll take that out. Now we've got a couple nice limbs. They'll come down with age. So we just kind of go around the tree and we do that. This is growing to the inside. This is growing to the inside. Here's a place where it would be nice to have this go outwards. So if you look at that, and you cut that right there, now you're pushing this limb in that direction. So the thing to remember, no matter what you're doing, anytime you make a cut on this tree, you're influencing growth. So just a general bit of thinning on an apple or a pear, and you're good to go. I left my loppers over there.